Welcome back to another episode of Psychonaut Sessions, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm going to continue my coverage of the Warlock 5 series from the 1980s independent comics imprint Aircell. We're continuing number 4. You can see a link in the description to my videos for numbers 1, 2, and 3. I did 2 and 3 one shot. So as we left off, in issue number 3, the 5 warlocks that control the gates to each of their dimensions and are the guardians of said gates, or their beings to harness the powers of said gates. We're in this huge fight at the end of issue 3, and I think it was the punk lady. I can't remember everybody's names. But the rock and roll cyberpunk lady in the midst of the fight pulled out a nuclear bomb and was about ready to blow everybody up. So we'll find out what happens. Let's take another look at the Denis Beauvoir's cover. The last couple of covers he's done highlighted one of the characters just like as a face shot. Totally cool. I liked this better than issue 3's. I think I like issue 2's face cover the best, but this one's really cool. Again, it's got that very 1980s cyberpunk feel. It's got this kind of necroscope vibe going with it. As we discussed before, I think Denis does a lot of mix of oils and airbrush, including even just some regular pencil pastel work that he incorporates into the paintings that really give it a nice tactile feel. It feels real, but yeah, it's got a sense of expressionism that I really appreciate with his work. Love the coloring, the color choice, especially the last two had more of a red pinkish sort of vibe, so kind of switching it up. Love it. I can never complain about Denis' work. Alright, so let's begin. We got Denis doing a portrait of both him and the writer, Gordon Derry. Gordon Derry is kind of pretty much responsible for a lot of the Aircell items and titles. Editor and writer. So, what happened? Let's see what's going on here, considering the last episode ended on a major battle cliffhanger, and we're not in the battle anymore. In fact, we're in Lord Dumador's crypt, or his home, where he sleeps beneath the city streets. What the heck is happening here? So it's just kind of, there's no explanation, and we've suddenly just taken a complete 180 in terms of story, right in the middle of a cliffhanger. So Dumador, who was part of the fight and who actually spearheaded the last fight, is just sleeping here peacefully in his bedroom, and maybe we'll get some understanding. We've got your normal Gordon Derry type style of work. Not Gordon Derry, Denis Beauvoir's, mixing paint and, regular inks together, looking really good. If you look really closely, yeah, Lord Dumador is sleeping with an eye patch teddy bear. But anyway, a lot of really great detail as is typical of Denis' work. So here we get this sequence where it looks like almost Doctor Strange-esque. Dumador's astral form starts coming out, and he thinks he's in a dream. And Savage-Star, the kind of half dragon, half vampiric, whatever creature that looks evil as hell, but apparently he's like one of the top good guys, protagonists. And is always vying for peace. So he's actually visiting Dumador in his astral form, and is pulling Dumador's astral form out of his body. And of course, Dumbledore is like, this can't be. Morbid wove a spell to protect me from danger. And he's like, well, I'm not here to actually hurt you. So what's going on here? So Savishar binds their astral forms together and takes Dumbledore through that. He's able to control Dumbledore's gate and takes Dumbledore through his own gate to travel. We're not sure yet, but a lot of really cool, imagery and sequences here. This the way Denis does this like fire. It looks like he's just using white space, and then I think airbrushing over it, just like with a slight hint. So I think that's how he gets that effect. But it's really strong in this book. The whites in this book probably in this particular issue stood out to me more than ever. But if we got these like very Byrne Hogarth sort of like forms. It almost looks like that Denis took Byrne Hogarth's dynamic figure drawing book and just kind of lifted straight from that, because I remember having that book and a lot of just like wild kind of forms and stuff. So Savishar, where is he taking Dumbledore? He takes Dumbledore to his past, 1,200 years earlier, into his alternate past. So they've mentioned this a couple times, almost as if the places where all the warlocks come from are like alternate pasts, alternate timelines, alternate futures. So it's not all actually one universe. It's a sort of multiverse. Hasn't really fully explained it yet. And so he's bringing Dumbledore to his own domain where he comes from, and supposedly the source of his power. And Savishar asks the question, if you're so powerful in this time and place, why did you leave this? Why did you leave? So it's like this like Scrooge scenario where he's taking him to his past and he's trying to teach him some sort of lesson. They've been enemies, but you get the sense that Savishar has always actually vied for peace and wanted peace. So it's like he's trying to, help Dumbledore reconcile something in his past or something in order to stop the fighting, so that all of the different alternate realities don't risk, falling apart. So a bunch of Dumbledore's troops come and they're on their way, and they see Savishar and they only see him in his true form, which is a dragon. And he just goes crazy on them, tears them all apart, and we get some more Savishar. This has been some of the best bits of this comic series so far, is watching Savishar just turn into his dragon form and go crazy, spitting fire. I mean, look at all like the way he does these flames, and just excellent work. And these are like Dumbledore's troops, and he's just like, okay, well, this is a place where only the strong can survive. And that's the kind of world I come from, or some kind of medieval, fantasy barbaric realm. But really cool. I mean, these are practically both splash pages, although this technically isn't, but really cool. Don't think there's a whole lot of like sequential narrative going on, but it's definitely some amazing imagery. I do like how Denis kind of switches into hard colors sometimes, like these hard grays here, to then various like gray tones in throughout the book. He tries not to stay bored, and I appreciate that. So as Dumbledore makes some sort of comment about this is where the strong survive, he's like, oh really, then let's go to the castle. And he's like, I don't want to go to the castle. And he takes Dumbledore anyways, because their auras are connected. So they go to his home, to his castle, and he's like, you're never going to be the master of your own destiny if you don't confront your past. And that's what Savishar tells Dumbledore, who's afraid to go see his father because his father banished him from his kingdom until his death. And then when his father dies, he can take over the kingdom. So you get that sense, it's like, I want to see Dad. So he approaches in his astral form. His troops can see him, and they try to attack him because they think he's a ghost. And he's like, "How dare you attack your prince?" And they move in. Nice big blacks here. They move into the main chamber. And so here we get another scenario where Denis is actually taking photos and photocopying them and incorporating them into his imagery. Now this is obviously painted, and you can kind of tell. So he's like painting on top of this picture, and this is all painted from him. This isn't. And as opposed to the last issue where there was the house and I wasn't sure if it was photocopied, this definitely you can 100,000,000% tell. But he tried to incorporate some of his own work onto it, so it's kind of like a collage. Even so, Denis doesn't really cut corners. He did a little bit in one of the last issues I covered where it just looked like he was trying to rush through. But you can tell throughout the rest of this, he's not cutting corners in this issue. And maybe he did this to save time. Maybe he liked the effect, but it works. It works, and like how all the grays are working together, the level of detail he provides elsewhere, and it also creates this certain kind of mood. I think sometimes collage can actually work. It's got to be really good. And some people have done it, and they just don't incorporate the imagery into the photos very well. But I mean, he actually did a really great job here. And so here's Dumidor's father. He's got a couple of lions there, and he sees his son coming up, and he's obviously just some kind of drunk, and he's like, "Be gone! You won't steal my throne, Phantom, even with that demon to aid you." He's like, "I don't want to steal the throne. I'm gonna wait until you die to inherit it. That's the law." He's like, "Oh, so you're here to plot my death?" So he sends the lions after them, and Savitar is like, "Call off your cats, or I'll be forced to kill them," and then immediately slays them. But some really beautiful imagery of these lions that Denis worked on. Obviously, probably working from some sort of a source, but just like gorgeous work though. This isn't like a photograph. He's actually drawing this. And again, see how it's not like he's using the same kinds of tones from one panel to the next, so he really likes switching it up, and this works really well here for a very shocking moment with all that white in the background. For some reason, he takes out he took out all of those soldiers earlier, and it was no problem. Savitar took out like a whole contingent of soldiers. He takes out these lions. Then after taking out these lions, there's a few troops surrounding him, and now he's like, "Dumidor, help me." And which is weird. That's one of those things about the writing that I just like. I don't understand that. Like, why is Savitar suddenly need help when he's been a total badass this whole time and be able to just like plow down anybody that faces him? So to move forward, the king gets all crazy and tries to attack Dumidor. He doesn't realize that this is his son yet, and he just thinks it's a phantom along with a dragon. And then as he gets closer, because he's drunk and whatnot, he says, "You would slay your own son," and the king freaks out and then falls to his knees crying. And so there's obviously some kind of past here. He's like, "Leave me be to my encroaching madness. I rule. I'm King Eternal." And he's like, "No, you're not," and walks away from his dad. This is really cool. The way he does the cloak here. It looks like this was all blacks, and then he went over it in really thick white paint, and it looks amazing. And of course, again, just like everywhere else, he's done that kind of airbrush sheen, which I appreciate. Alright, so what's going on here? We don't really know. And they're kind of talking, and Savitar is like, "In this way, you want to mold the universe into a realm of hatred or aggression and brutality rule?" And he's like, "It's the only way I know." And he's like, "Let me show you my world, Dumidor, the only true hope for the future." Takes him up to Spire. I don't know why they need to get to the roof in order to leave. They're in astral form, but that's okay. But anyway, he takes Doomajor to his world, and so that a world that Savitar says is of tranquility and peace, and the ultimate reality where we choose to live in harmony with nature. You have no artificial structures to inhibit our spiritual growth. And of course, Doomajor's like, what? No wine, no wenches, no battles? This isn't paradise, this is hell. Pretty funny. So this is Savitar's realm. So like, what's going on here? Is this going to get tied back to the original story? Like where we're at? Like what's going to happen here? And nothing, no explanation at all as to like what happened in the previous issue. Did they blow up, or is this issue now taking place in the past and we're going to cycle back? No explanation at all. What we get is just now a couple of like file cards, from the secret files of Gordon Derry, and it's just like, file cards or bios of these two particular characters, which goes into their name and place of birth, marital status, which is like, why do we care about that? Base of operations, origin, height, weight, which does that really, eyes, hair. I mean, I guess these were fun when I was a kid. I really liked them. But also they have like legal status on each of the, like, why are we listing somebody's legal status? And each one of them says illegal alien. Because all of this is supposedly centered around a kind of like nameless city. How do I know that? Well, we haven't been told that yet. But anyway, their powers, I mean, he's just a brute medieval knight. He's like kind of half dragon. Actually, it says here he is more of a dragon style race, and he got this ability whenever he became the guardian, the warlock guardian of his portal for his realm. It somehow was able to imbue him with the power to transform himself into a semblance of a human being. So apparently that power to transform oneself is not inherent to his race. So that's it. And then we actually, so in the back of the other issues, there was some kind of like cartoony extra segment of course, I love cartoons. I love cartoony stuff, but it just wasn't really that good. I didn't like it. It extended up to like issue 3. But now we got something, that was like looking pretty cool. And I actually enjoyed this. So this extra segment, again, written by Gordon Derry, and art by Brian Donnelly. I don't think I really know Brian Donnelly, but I really like this. This is a segment called Dunwich and Gnome, Paranormal Investigators, and Gnome without a G. And this is like a case, so they're like supernatural investigators, and they're on a case, the case of the stolen soul. So apparently they're looking for a gem that this old widow hired them to find because she says it was stolen. And she claims that her deceased husband's spirit essence resides in that stone. So they call it the soul. They call it the soul stone and the soul gem throughout. It's like, this is 86, 87. So it's like, the Infinity Gems were already around, guys. From Marvel Comics, but really cool. I mean, I really like this style. It's got this like this is very much an underground 80s style. It's not trying to be Marvel or DC, which I greatly appreciate. And it looks like, because I know this because I do it myself, but it looks like that this isn't any kind of Zippo tone or duotone, that it's just pure ink washes, or it might even be marker of some sort. Or just like rough paint, but instead of doing those duotone shades, they're just doing regular, which I do in Simon Myth, and I really like the effect. It can look pretty messy sometimes, as you can see. So for sure, it's like it can be kind of unsophisticated, but I like it. It adds this like dynamic feel and movement towards everything that you wouldn't get normally with just the regular black and white images and then throwing Zipatone on there. I mean, that's why I do that. It's pretty unhinged sometimes, and it's pretty it can be pretty wild, and a loose cannon sort of material, or technique to use, but I enjoy it. So they go to some newsstand where apparently this guy is an informant, and they usually get information out of him because he knows the news on the streets. His name's Mac. So he runs this newsstand, and the gnome guy, and of course, like, I mean, he's complaining about Mac wanting $10 to give information. He's like, I need to find myself a cheaper informant. Your rates are too steep. It's like, what? $10 is that's pretty good stuff. Even in the 80s, I think that's probably a decent amount of money to slip someone to get some information. And then Gnome sees these guys pull up on the car and they start shooting. I didn't really know what this was at first. I thought he was just diving, but he's actually pulling Mac down. And the gnome, of course, a bullet flies by and he has like a whiff of hair getting taken off. Very silly. And the gnome can actually see people in their like true form if they're like some kind of supernatural being. So these guys are actually some kind of like ogre or demon or something. And they shoot, but everybody's unharmed and they take off. And so now they're like, okay, this is a dangerous gig. We got to figure out what. So Matt gave them some information and told them that he heard about some antiquarian bookseller that might have it. And they go to the place downtown, nice and moody, very outlaw comic. This is like supposed to be like New York City in the like gritty like 70s and 80s kind of vibe. And they pull up to the antiquarian bookshop, and then it's just some banter. Like it's just like your common thing where your two partners, they're like giving each other shit and everything, and it's fun. It's okay. There's no explanation or origin of who these characters are, and this gnome guy and this dude, and that's fine. We're just diving right into this. And this was a pretty interesting image. This is actually supposed to be from inside the bookshop, and he's like wiping away dust on the glass or something, which was kind of like, I didn't understand what that was at first. So the door is broken when they move in, or when they go in, so something's wrong. Nice cool shot of the bookshop here, and the gnome says something about like, hey, here's something interesting, and then they hear a scream. Dunwich runs to the back, knocks down a door, and then there's a guy running away, like a monster kind of dude, and like the bookseller is on the ground, like was attacked or something. He shoots. The bookseller's like, stop that thing, has the gem. And so he tells Gnome to look after the dude, and he runs to try to find the monster. It tries to attack him. So like, this is like, the imagery in this is very Ken Landgraf, like New York City outlaws. Like, I love this sort of stuff. Just tons of fun. Got a little heavy on the inks here, and that's really hard. I mean, especially back then, to gauge like how heavy your ink washes need to be, and especially back then, because when it prints out, it can get like really dark. Now on the screen that you all are seeing, for some reason that always makes things lighter. So it actually looks a little better, but in real life it's like so saturated, it's really hard to kind of tell what's what. Oops. So this monster is attacking him, and this dude, the gnome guy, runs up and throws this like, like he has this book on him, and he's like, I'll save you. And he's like, stay back, you jerk. And whoa, I'm slipping. And the book like slips out of his hand, hits the monster in the head. And when he does, he drops the gem onto the book, which drops on the ground. And the monster runs away. And he's like, I can't believe it. I put 3 slugs into that monster, and they didn't even slow it down. But that book, Gnome had almost destroyed it. And so he looks at it, and the book says Rites of Purification by Saint Damien. So he's like, well, I'm going to buy it. I found it first. And he's like, say, Sam, can you lend me $20? End of part 1, which is like really cool. Loved this. But also, it's like, did they not? The gem was right there. It just dropped. Did the monster grab it and run off again? Because the gem dropped right there. So I'm guessing the monster must have grabbed it when it ran off, and we just didn't see that. But really, really love this. It's got that outlaw power comic-y vibe, and I want a full-fledged comic of this. Give it to me. Give it to me. And then here we have a lot of text, and they finally talk about the actual universe and setup and backstory to all of this. Did they explain why this issue has nothing to do with issues 1 through 3 and it's just cut away in the middle of a cliffhanger? Nope. But it does talk about that there is this substance called the Warlock Fire, which binds the universe together. And for some reason, somehow, and so like mystics channel the Warlock Fire in order, to do magic and channel the power of the universe. Somehow, some way, there was a split in the universe, some kind of break. They don't explain why. That ended up splintering the universe into multiple alternate timelines and whatnot. And the grid, which was referenced in previous videos, is that place where all these universes converge. And the grid is actually where a lot of the book was taking place up to this point, and which looked like New York City, but it's just some unnamed city. And they deliberately say it's not named for the sake to protect the guilty, whatever that means. I think they're just being cheeky. The grid is like the one place where all these universes all can converge, and the warlocks are the people that can channel the Warlock Fire, because there's 5 very specific strains of power that the Warlock Fire inhabits, and each one of these characters tap into that and protect the gateways that go from their realm into the grid. And that's about it. Nothing really notable in the letters columns at all. People back then, just, it's interesting. I mean, this is pre-internet, so the way people write sometimes is just kind of funny. That's it. Looks pretty cool. Wanted Dead or Alive. Haven't seen that. I haven't seen this around at all. I wonder if it came out. I'll need to check it out. But that's Warlock 5, number 4. I enjoyed this issue, but it was like, what? Like, what happened? Like, why did this just suddenly jump and shift stories without any explanation? But I really did enjoy the Dunwich and Gnome segment, and I'm looking forward to that next one. In the next issue, so you will get it here. I'll cover that soon, and thank you everybody. Like, subscribe, hit the notification bell if you can, and then also, I have my own comics, my own books, as well as I have a Patreon account that has exclusive content. All that information is details in the description. Thank you so much. Keep it psycho.